And I'm also gonna go live on Facebook. So it's up to you. You don't have to have your camera on. Either way is fine. Oh, wait, I already did that. Okay. Happy Friday Eve. Yes. Oh, it's rainy and cold in Ohio. Oh no. I think it rained in Maryland earlier today, but it was a little warmer on the warm side for January. How is everyone doing? Let me know in the chat. Tell me a little bit about you in terms of what you are hoping to get from tonight, or just have any questions. Please pop it in the chat. I try to make sure everyone has the handout. It's just a few slides, but I wanted to make sure everyone had it. So I did send it out earlier. And if you need it, let me upload it here. I will drop. Yes, this one. Let me drop the link in the chat. Copy. Okay, so I have my Facebook up. Okay, so I have my, turn me down. I have my Facebook on. So if you are chatting on Facebook, I can see it. Also, if you're chatting in the Zoom, I can see that as well. So welcome. My name is Dr. Sapphire Boone. I see a lot of names that I'm already familiar with, so thank you so much for joining. If I have any first time people that are attending my class, please let me know. But I guess I'll just go through my spiel. So I'm Dr. Sapphire Boone. I am from Maryland. Hey, Maryland. I'm from Maryland, and I am the CEO of Advanced Social Work Solutions. It's a professional consulting firm. I actually was in the pandemic, like we all were, starting in 2020. I wanted to do licensure prep before the pandemic, and actually had a licensure prep session scheduled for in person. And then when the pandemic hit, everything closed down. And so I moved everything virtual, and actually really haven't done a whole lot of in-person events, just because everyone likes to be virtual now. So I've been doing this for almost 3 years. So I'm really super, super excited to share with you everything that I know about the exam. Tonight, we're gonna heavily focus on how to get started. Sometimes it just takes that leap of faith to go ahead and get started. Sometimes you just need a little motivation. So I'm hoping tonight you will get that motivation. You'll get the answers that you need also. And so I'm really, really excited to do that for you. I have a passion for it. I do have my BSW, MSW, and PhD in social work, all from Morgan State University. I got my LMSW, which is the master's level license, in 2012. And then I got my LCSW, which in Maryland is the advanced generalist, exam. So not the clinical, but the advanced generalist exam. I got that in 2014, I believe. And so I passed both exams on the first try. And I think that I passed on the first try, not just because of luck, because that was definitely involved, but also because I took the time to figure out what they wanted me to say. And so that's what my focus is. So even though I'm kicking off my live classes, let me do a little plug here. Let me find my flyer. I'm kicking off my live classes here starting next week. So let me share my little poster. And I saw I have a first timer that is doing the live, but she has my replay bundle. So for all those who purchase the replay bundle, you get one class for free. So just email me, let me know which class you want to attend, and I'll add you to that class for free. But all the classes are on sale right now for $17 each. And so the reason that I make sure, there we go, pin. The reason the focus that I have in my classes is really to prepare you for the questions. So I am a teacher. So I'm a teacher and a trainer. So I have to teach and train you first. But the real focus really is the questions. And the only reason I give you the material and go over the content with you is so that not only will you have simplified content, but then you also will see how to use the simplified content to answer the questions. And I see my husband is on here, so shout out to the best husband ever. He always is watching me. And so, you know, he'll probably make a comment, so just ignore him if you're on Facebook. Yeah, so the classes are really, really good to hold you accountable. So if you're having issues getting started, you're having trouble with it, the classes are great. However, if you do have the replay bundle and you don't want to spend any more money, which I understand, go ahead, because the material has not changed. So instead of, this is up to you, instead of purchasing the classes, you can actually just watch your videos during the same exact day and time. But if you want to join me, I'll be so happy to have you. And it's helpful too, because you get to see what people are saying, how they view the questions, and you get to see what other people have questions about as well. So that's my shameless plug. I'm going to put the link in the chat for you. And the classes are on sale until 1/19. So you have another week. So if you would like to purchase the classes, go ahead and do so. I do have to give a warning that all of the classes are purchased individually. So I did contact the platform Ticket Tailor. They told me that you can't buy them all at once. So that'll probably be the last time I use them, because I know if you're wanting to do the whole series, you want to buy them all at once. And so, yes. Dr. Boone, do you have classes for the clinical exam? I used them for the first exam. It was very helpful. If you are going to use me for the clinical exam, you can. I know that a lot of times people like to buy and get material that's specific to the clinical. So my material is specific to the master's level. And really the only reason I do that is because in terms of my ethics, you know, I've never taken the clinical exam, so I don't want to teach you to take the clinical exam. However, I have tutored and helped people with the clinical exam. And what I can say the difference is, there's not a whole lot of difference in terms of you studying, right? So the studying is going to be the same. So some classes that are really, really good about if you're doing the clinical exam is the practice questions only, really, really good, because there are going to be clinical questions in there as well. The theories is good. Community is great. And ethics is great. Diagnosis and medication is great as well. The reason why I skip direct practice is because it's still good. You can come to the class, but I think for direct practice, for the masters, we focus more on assessment. And I was just explaining this to one of my friends yesterday. The clinical is going to focus on interventions. And so although we do go over interventions in my direct practice class, we don't go over in the depth that you need it. And so for the clinical, not only do you need to know the therapeutic interventions, but also how they're connected to theory and how they are matched with different disorders. And so that I'm going to leave to the professionals because I do not know anything about clinical practice for real. But I can tell you all about it in terms of the test. And so I don't have specific classes for it. And so I am sorry about that. However, if you did use my material the first time, you can still use it because my material is lifetime access. So just let me know, hey, Dr. Boone, I can't figure out how to access it, and I'll make sure you get the materials, no problem. Yeah, so if you have, if this is your first time or if you are retesting, tonight is going to be for you. I'm really excited. Let's go ahead and jump into the presentation. The classes are the same as the bundle. It's the same material. The bundle just puts it in a way, kind of organizes it. So you have it all in one place, where the classes, I just email you the recording afterwards. But the replay bundle is a little better for those that need something all in one place, a little more structured, but the material is the same. So if you have the replay bundle already and you don't want to buy the live classes, you can literally just watch them. And then in the future, probably near future, I'm going to find a way to have both, because I find that a lot of my clients that do the replay bundle also like doing the live classes. So I'm definitely going to figure out how to do that very soon. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I just did 2 workshops back to back this past week for universities. So I did this just as an icebreaker, but drop in the chat, what is your favorite hype song? And the reason I asked that is because you need a hype song, okay? Because this journey of studying is not for the faint at heart, okay? You need something to hype you up, and you also need something to calm you down. So we're gonna start with the hype song. My favorite song to get me in the hype mood is going to be Beyonce, Cuff It. I love that song. It's just, I loved it before it got, before it was a dance. I just love that song. So you need a song that makes you hype. Drop it in the chat. What's your hype song? Maybe someone can steal your hype song so that, oh yes, Cardi B. Yes, that's my favorite. Okay. Because you need something. You need something that transforms you where you feel like you can do anything. Okay. And if you have people in your lives that also make you feel like that, typically it's like a mom, a grandma, it could be a male figure in your life. It could be your kids, especially little teeny babies. They absolutely love you before they, get an attitude. So if you have a child in your life that just absolutely loves you and adores you, you want to visit them. Okay, you want to have lots of conversations with them because you need all of the pouring into, and you need also someone that will keep you focused. Like if you have a person that will tell you, hey, you can do it. Stop doubting yourself. If you have someone that pours into your life like that, then you need to definitely make sure you're constantly conversating with them. Okay, so I should have took this slide out too. I had some slides in there about Maryland, but just ignore the Maryland part. Who creates the test? So the ASWB, Association of Social Work Boards, creates the test. We all know that, right? But you want to make sure you get all your information from their website. And then I have their handbook right here. You also want to make sure you have the content outline printed out so that you know exactly what you're expected to know on the exam. I'm checking my Facebook too. So if you have anything, I don't see anything. Oh, yes. I don't see anything on the Facebook. Yes, Megan the Stallion. Okay, I love it. So ASWB, they're in a little jam right now, and we all know why, because they released some study findings. They weren't necessarily surprising to me because I think anyone that has studied for this exam and is a person of color knows that the exam is not written for you. Okay. The exam questions are very prescriptive. They're written in a certain way. And the social worker in the scenarios are to respond in a very specific way. So although it is very, very biased, as is most standardized tests, the bias, although it is terrible and is probably the explanation of a lot of failures, some of the bias also, if you learn it good enough, I mean, that sounds terrible to learn how to be biased, but if you learn how to be biased, you can pass it. And so until we get a firm change, then I'm still helping people pass it. You know, hopefully they do change how we look at social work, how we evaluate social work. I know personally of people that have abandoned the whole profession because of this exam. And so if you were ever in that space where you felt like, I don't even want to be a social worker anymore, this job is not for me. Obviously, I cannot be a social worker because I can't pass the exam. If that was you, your thought process was very understandable, but I am here to tell you not to think like that. Not only because the test does not define who you are as a social worker, but you got into the field for a reason. We all got into the field for a reason. We all wanted to be helpers. I know that that's like a cliche for social work, but we all got into it for a reason. And before there was an ASWB, before there was a CSWE, before there was schools of social work, all types of people did the work and were not licensed, right? And so who gets to say who is a social worker, right? So that's what we're trying to figure out as a society right now, is who is in charge of saying who is qualified to be a social worker. So that's the talk right now. The talk is, I'm in academia. I went to CSWE, the conference. And so that was a hot topic at the conference. And so as a nation, we're trying to figure out how can we correct this, okay? And so some states have already tried to correct it or are already kind of ahead, that's what I'm saying, ahead of the game, right? So some have said, hey, after you get your MSW, you're automatically licensed. What? I hope Maryland does that. Let's see. We're gonna see. So I don't know. Tell me, has your state done anything about this? Have you heard anything from your board? Please tap into the board. Tap into the board. I think if there was any time for us to advocate, band together, we've been talking about banding together about this exam for years, but now we have the findings and the research to be able to band together. So it is a lot of talk. And so hopefully the talks will go good. I'm actually going to be on a meeting tomorrow for my state. The ASWB is coming to our state board and having a town hall. So we'll see what they say. In the meantime, you're going to be going into the exam with 170 multiple choice questions with 20 that are unscored for 4 hours. The scoring ranges from 90 to 107. You don't know how many you need to pass. I know some people are like, oh, I heard it was you need at least 100 to pass. But the scores go from 90 to 107. And they are, so they are switching it to 3 choice answers instead of 4 for some of them. So you still have to prepare the same way you would for 4 answers, okay? But they're also going to put 3 answers in there as well. And the reasoning is because they're trying to correct a wrong, I think, in my opinion, right? So they're trying to figure out how to make the exam a little easier to pass. So if you had trouble 4, 5, I've had clients that took the exam 15 times before, right? So I feel like 2023, try the new exam. I'm not saying that it's an automatic pass, but hopefully those questions will be easier and you'll be able to do that. Okay, so possibly there may only be 10 questions. Oh my gosh, that's not a lot of questions. So they're supposed to increase the amount of questions with 3 answers from January, which is now, until 2025. So they're going to increase it. So it's not the entire test, but it is a change. So you want to make sure that you prepare for it. But honestly, the way that I'm going to prepare you for the exam, you're not going to need to change your strategy. But I will have examples of 3 answers just so you can see what it may look like. Okay, selecting your material. Okay, Brittany says every time she tests, she needs 90 something. Yeah, so if we go back to our slide, yeah, 90 something, you have a harder test. And the harder tests, you need less to pass. And the easier, in quotations, you need more right to pass because they're saying that the questions are easier, so therefore they're making it a little higher in terms of how many. So selecting your material. So of course I do have material, but I know that for me, if you're visual, sometimes you need a book, right? You need something in your hand, something physical. And so having a study guide is good. So here are some study guides that are good. Dawn Apgar is probably the most common. I actually met Dr. Apgar at CSWE. I was trying not to be like a super fan. But I was like, oh, she's a celebrity, really. And so her material is really good. It's a lot of material no matter what. So just know that if you get a study guide, it's going to be, hundreds and hundreds of pages of material. It is overwhelming. So the reason why I created my online course, and even with the classes, I simplified the material. However, I cannot cover everything that may be on the exam. So that's why I do suggest you have a supplemental or a secondary study material. LEAP is really good as well. Sorry, hold on. Somebody's trying to get access to our live. It's on Facebook. Search. Okay. LEAP is also good as well. And they have more than just a study guide. They have video courses, they have audio courses, they have online practice tests. So their material is good as well. And TDC might be a little more popular even than Dawn Apgar, actually. So, and then I had some others down here, just ones that people told me were good, but I would say A, B, or C is really good. So A is going to run you for the bundle. She has a bundle of 2 books. It's going to run you, it was on sale for like $70, but I think it has gone back up. It might be around 100. I have to look on Amazon. But Dawn Apgar has a bundle of a guide with questions in the back and then a book just with questions. She also has an app to go with it, so that's pretty good. Leap also is going to run you for their study guide book that's right here. It's going to run you about a little over $100. TDC is a program, so it's not necessarily a study book, it's an actual program, and so they're going to run you about $275, and I think normally there's like a $15 discount code that typically floats around. Yeah, and ask around too. Even on Facebook, I know that a lot of people will post their study guides, or even ask around maybe at your job, or ask your supervisor. Also, ask your job, because sometimes jobs will pour money into your journey, but you just didn't know it because you didn't ask. They're not going to advertise spending money, but that's professional development. So see if your job, especially if it's a mental health clinic or something like that, see if your job will pay for your materials, if they'll pay for your exam fee. Like, what are you going to pay for? If they'll pay for me, yeah, definitely ask them, because I've had people reach out and they've been able to get their agency to pay for prep materials and the exam. So please ask. Okay. In the email I sent out, I also had a learning style quiz and an anxiety quiz. So tell me in the chat, what kind of learner are you? If you were able to take the quiz, definitely take it, because some people swear up and down they're one type of learner, but the quiz will come out a different one. But tell me what you are. And then when I send out, I'm going to send out the email again, just with the recording, and then tell me what you found out you were. What really are you on the quiz? Some people are combination, all the above. Yes, all of the above. Some people are a combination, which is good. The reason why I start here is because if you are a auditory learner, for example, or a hands-on learner, and you just read a study book, you're going to go crazy, right? Because that's not how you learn. So if you are trying to cram the information in a way that is counter to what your natural learning style is, you're really wasting time. So I want to make sure you don't waste your time. So visual, color coded, perfect. So for my visual learners, I did note cards. I wrote in my notebook. I highlighted my study guide. I just always had to write things down. So visual learners, that's what you're going to do. Also, I want you to invest in some color pens and some color highlighters as well, so that you can make sure that you're really visualizing what's going on. Hands-on learners, now you have to take a different approach, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to ask your clinical supervisor, hopefully you have one, for some real live examples, right? So when you're reading it in the book, I want you to take whatever area you're reviewing, go to a clinician and ask them to give you an example, right? The other way to do that is to start with the questions. And that can be difficult because we know there are a lot of questions, but there are a lot of questions that aren't as good. And then especially if you have like a program, you're going to run through your questions really quickly. So do a combination of both. Do some questions, but also ask for some experience. You need to hold your employer accountable, I'm telling you. And a good supervisor will help you with your exam. They will help you pass your exam. So use your resources. So you want to be able to get some like firm examples of it is going to help you. Also, you're going to take questions. And also, I would say maybe just being able to move around a little bit. And if you are also a little bit auditory, saying it out loud will also help those that are auditory and maybe a little hands-on. So when you're studying, if you're a mixed learning style, I want you to mix some of this. Don't just stick with one learning style. If you're really mixed between the two, you want to be able to do combined types of study. Because sometimes studying can get a little stale. It's already boring. You're already falling asleep and going to sleep on it. So make sure you're able to combine how you study. So you got your material, you figured out how you're going to study your material, then you have created your own study material. What I mean by that is I took what was in the book and I put it in my notebook, or I took what was in the book and I put it on note cards, right? Or if you're auditory, there's a lot of YouTubes out there, so you really don't need to record yourself, but you can record yourself with the material. I think there's a way, if you get the PDF version, there's some type of program that will read the PDF to you. And I forget what the hack was. But you can do any of those things to study. So creating your study material is going to take some time. So you want to have a study material, you have to kind of prepare it, right? And then you're going to review the study material. You're also going to review study questions. So you're going to be taking study questions as you go along. Everybody typically is familiar with the behavioral health app /Pocket Prep. I do approve it. I'm not getting any money off of my approval, but I do think that it's good. And the reason I think it's good is although the questions are not formatted at all like the exam, they are very good in terms of keeping you fresh, keeping you on your toes, and being able to keep the content in. So the content that they're reviewing is going to be on the exam. It's just not going to be presented the way they present it. So if you do get the questions wrong on there, what typically happens is my clients are like, oh my gosh, I did behavioral health, or I did Don Apgar book, those questions, and I got them all wrong. Well, that's because they're very content heavy. So unless you knew the content, you're going to get the questions wrong. So the great thing about those questions is that you'll be able to identify where your weak areas are and you can adjust. I want you to organize your study materials, right? So get a binder, but I also want you to get a notebook dedicated for your weak areas. I haven't thought of a name of this book, but you're going to have a book that's dedicated to things I don't know. Somebody will come up with a good name for it. But what I want you to do is every time you get a question wrong, and every time you come across a very difficult concept, or anytime you come across a word you've never seen before or wasn't familiar with the definition, write it in your things I didn't know book. Okay. Once you write it in there, it automatically becomes part of your studying. So for example, let's say you're having a really hard time with Erickson. Like no matter how many times you go over it, you still can't get it to stick. Put it in your book. Okay. You're also going to put it all other types of areas, like Post-it notes are great. You're going to post it everywhere, on your refrigerator, on your microwave, on your laptop. You're going to be posting this stuff everywhere to get it to stick, right? Especially for visual, you're going to get that to stick. But the reason I say write down what you have trouble with is because the more you review it, hopefully the more it will stick. In terms of getting a question wrong, I don't want you to write down the entire question. I don't want you to do that. But I want you to write down what you got wrong. Did you get a term wrong? And that's why you got it wrong? Write it in your book. Did you forget that safety is first? Write that in your book, right? I want you to write down what you get wrong, because the whole point of Going through the material is to get better. And so it's a way to help yourself improve. Not all study questions are created equal, so the best bet is to go to ASWB and purchase the full practice test. Now, I know that I have a lot of people in here that have already purchased it, so I do not recommend that you purchase it more than once. Only purchase it once, unless the last time you purchased it was so long ago you don't remember any of the questions. Now, if that's the case, then go ahead and purchase it again. But typically, you're going to remember the questions from the exam because they have not changed. The practice exam has not changed. You can only take it once. You do have access to it for 30 days after you launch it. I suggest you take it like the real exam within your full 4 hours. Don't have your phone on, maybe put on vibrate at least. Go to the library or go to a quiet place, lock the door. Don't let people bother you for 4 hours. Because we want to know, how are you with timing, right? You're not going to know unless you sit for the full 4 hours. The practice exam is not a correlation to a pass. It doesn't mean you will pass. But what I would say is after you take the exam full out, you need to study the exam. So the reason I give you 2 to 3 weeks before your test date is because I want you to actually study it. A lot of people, they take the exam and they may review it one time and that's it. That's not enough. You need to keep reviewing the questions, and you're going to write down in your things I don't know book what you get wrong. Sometimes people have trouble with child abuse and neglect questions. If you keep getting those wrong, you need to know that about yourself. Someone tell me in the chat, what are your weak areas? Do you know what they are? What do you tend to get wrong? You can't base it on the exam, because when you go in the exam, it's like a blur. So when I was in the exam, I said to myself, I'm going to remember this question. It was some term I never heard of. I said, I'm going to remember this question so that I can look it up afterwards. Do you think I remember that question? No, I did not. Right? Because I just went over another 169 questions. So I know I didn't remember that question. So you can't really base it upon your exam. So you're going to have to base it on your practice, because you're able to really see what the answers were, one, and you need to, so you can see what you've gotten wrong. Human behavior. I see a lot of human behavior. Let me tell you about human behavior and I'm going to tell you why you're struggling with it. Or you may not be struggling with it as much as you think. So the reason why human behavior, and it depends on what you mean by human behavior. You could be talking about the theories, but if you've taken an exam and you've seen that your human development is low, that category is low, it may be because there are so many different types of questions under that category. Child abuse and neglect, adult abuse and neglect, domestic or interpersonal violence is underneath of there. LGBTQ plus questions, diversity questions, any type of diverse population fits underneath of there. Also, group development. So it could be about group development and you didn't process that was about a group, and so you picked the wrong answer, right? And so you have to pay attention to those things. And so that's why that particular area is a little harder to sometimes figure out and pinpoint what exactly you're struggling with. And know that practice questions also fall under human development. If the question is going to be a scenario question, but again, like I said, it might be geared towards diversity, or it might be trying to have you identify some type of behavior in the question, but it's not going to be definition based. It's going to be scenario based. And so it can be harder to pinpoint. Program development, evaluation. Yes, research. No one that I know ever liked research. So it's very, it's very, very, very hard. So you want to make sure that you're really seeing how you can improve. Do you write questions for the exam? I do not. I do not write questions for the exam. If I would have to shut down my whole business, because you cannot exam prep and write questions for the exam, obviously, for conflict of interest reasons. And so when I saw the exam, the call for exam writers, I did not put my application in. However, I'm hoping that, you know, they will change some things about the exam. That's what I'm hoping. Because I heard even if they have exam writers that are writing some diverse questions, they only, this is just what I heard now, it's not fact, that they will, you know, kind of be selective on which questions they even approve or take. So even if people were writing questions that were more diverse, they might not have been selected. So just putting that there. Okay, direct practice, yes. I saw a very similar question from your last time. The last time I took it, it was a diversity question. Oh, good, that's good. That means that my material is helpful, that's good. But no, I don't write exam questions. So what you see on my questions, the reason why it may be similar is just because I'm trying to make sure that the format is similar. The content is the same, right? So no matter what study material you select, we're all talking about the same thing. All of that stuff that you see, we're all saying the same thing. So social work, the social work topics have not changed over, you know, the past like 20 years. We've just modified how we are teaching it. Definitely, that has changed, but the content has really not changed. We're still talking about Freud, okay? And so I really do try to make the questions read like the exam. So for example, if you get a lot of definition questions, there's not going to be a lot of definition questions on there. But hopefully there's going to be some, like you said, diversity questions that'll be on there. And when people are like, oh yeah, I struggle with this, I struggle with this, I'm like, okay, let me make some questions about that so that we can struggle less. Let's struggle less, okay? So your study plan is really important. So what I suggest is, does anyone have a test date? That's what you're going to start with. Even if you don't have an official test date that you paid for, you're going to go ahead and identify a test date, and I want you to work backwards. I do suggest 3 months. I do suggest 3 months, but I do know that if you've recently taken the exam, or if you've taken the exam multiple times, then you probably don't need 3 months. You could probably do 2. And your focus should change just a little bit. The material really doesn't change. And so if the first time you winged it, okay, let's not wing it. Maybe you do need to study a little more. But if you studied really, really thoroughly, then it's probably not the material. It's probably, maybe, possibly a couple of things, right? It could be anxiety. Yes, anxiety can hold you back from an exam. It could be your comprehension of what they are saying. Okay. And so for that, I've had clients who had concentration issues. So if they're having a hard time concentrating, then they're not comprehending the exam, and so they keep failing. So once they fix their concentration issue, they passed, right? So it could be concentration, it could be comprehension, it could be anxiety. The number one is definitely anxiety. And so I've had a lot of people say, well, I didn't have any anxiety. I'm like, are you sure you didn't have any anxiety? Did you second guess yourself? And they'll be like, oh yeah, I did second guess myself. That's anxiety, right? It's just not, you weren't maybe nervous, you weren't like shaking or sweating or anything, but you didn't believe in yourself. You second guess yourself. And so you need to definitely address that. And that's a harder thing to address, especially for me as an exam coach. It can be a little harder. My partner in crime, who I train with all the time, she told me that even though I don't like clinical stuff, she told me that I should become a therapist and only focus on anxiety so that I can help you all with the exam. And I'm like, that is a great idea. I could definitely do that. So I just had to figure out how I'm gonna do that. But yeah, anxiety is really, really key. And it's something, like I said, it's more of a personal thing. So it can be harder for like material to help with your anxiety. But my hope is that with your growing confidence, like the more information you know from me, then hopefully the better you will be prepared, the higher confidence you'll have, and the better you perform on the exam. So that's typically how I try to address your anxiety, is just by giving you more confidence in yourself. But I really, I can help, but I really can't do it for you. So this is a sample study plan. Take a screenshot of this. You should have it in your email. But if you didn't receive the handout, just let me know in the chat and I'll make sure you receive it. This is just some topics that you could review. And I kind of just broke it down. And you can break these things down even further. Right? Human development, there are many different theorists. And so you may say, okay, today I'm focusing on Freud. Tomorrow I'm focusing on Bowlby. Wednesday I'm focusing on whoever, right? So make sure, if you didn't receive the handout, you may have signed up for the class on Zoom after I sent it out. If that's the case, then you'll definitely receive it. But if not, then just drop your email in there one more time. You can direct chat me if you want, so I can make sure to send it to you. Or if you still don't get it by tomorrow, then just email me and be like, hey, I didn't get it, and I'll make sure you get it. Okay, so this is what we've been talking about. I hope this is helpful. Anxiety. Everybody has some level of anxiety. Even my husband, even as confident as that man is, he still gets a little anxiety, a little doubt. A little bit of doubt will come in every once in a while. So it's important to know and to recognize that you're experiencing anxiety. I mean, we all say, oh my gosh, I have so much anxiety, but what is it that you're experiencing? Are you experiencing a general fear? Are you worried about your ability to actually remember the information? I have a lot of people tell me, hey, I've been out of school for 15 years. I mean, I don't even have a chance at this. And I'm like, don't think like that. I have helped all different types of people, fresh out, been away from the material for a long time, been in the field for a long time. So guess what? It doesn't really matter whether you graduated yesterday or still in school, or if you haven't seen the material in 30 years. Everyone starts on a level playing field. Why do I say that? Because the university does not teach to the test for the most part. Now, some universities may be more, be more proactive, but for in general sense, the universities are not teaching to the exam, right? Nor should they be. They should be teaching you for real life people. So it's going to be it's an even playing field. Everybody has to switch their thinking. Nobody comes out of school and automatically thinks like the test. That's for sure. You have to learn, what kind of social worker am I in the test world? Because in the real world, you are the bomb type of social worker. That's what you are. But on the exam, you just have to figure out, okay, am I a school social worker? How does the exam view school social workers? Because the school social workers I know are also therapists, but on the exam, you are really not a therapist if you're a school social worker. They're going to say you're a therapist if you're a therapist, right? They're going to say you work at a mental health clinic. If they say you're a school social worker, you're really just working on figuring out what to do with the behavior of the child, right? What's going on at home? That's really what the focus is. And so that's not necessarily something that may be going on at your agency, or that's not how your agency views things, right? So you have to peel back those layers. I don't even know why I said all that. I'm sorry. But fear of not being able to settle your motor tensions, restlessness, tiredness, shaking, right? So if you're having a lot of those symptoms, just pay attention to those. Also, I've had clients who I'm talking to them about the exam and they are having a panic attack, right? Every time they think about the exam, they have some type of tightness, some type of shortness of breath. You need to pay attention to that. It's not okay for you to just say, well, everyone has this. I'm just having anxiety. It's okay. I'll be fine. No, you really do have to figure out how to address your anxiety. It's really important. Even if you still are anxious during the exam, that's fine. You're going to be anxious during the exam. But if you're not able to calm yourself down in the exam, then it's going to be detrimental to your performance. All of these symptoms that you see, difficulties concentrating, disrupted sleep patterns, irritability, these are things that can be addressed. And you should definitely address them. Sometimes you need professional help. I know we're all social workers. We were taught to seek professional help, but sometimes we don't feel like it. We're like, I don't need all of that. I don't need that. But you really may need it. You really, really may need some help. And so please, 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 don't ignore these signs. Here are some ways that you can address anxiety. The number one way is you may need professional help, and you should definitely seek it. It might not even be a therapist. It could be just your primary care helping you with your concentration issues, helping you with your sleep issues. Also, I've had a couple of my clients see educational psychologists, and they found out they had ADHD after all these years, right? So it could be something like that. I'm not saying that you had that, but I'm just saying that there could be some other issues, underlying academic issues that maybe you have not been addressing. So preparing for the exam, prepare early. That's a way not to be anxious. If you are a procrastinator, raise your hand. If you are a procrastinator, then you probably will actually do well on the exam, because yeah, you might do okay. But procrastinators, you do well under pressure. So hopefully you will shine, but maybe take a little pressure off. See if you're able to do some of these suggestions. Systematic desensitization. Did anybody think about, I was thinking about behavior theory, right? This is a technique. The more exposure you have to the exam, the less you'll be anxious, hopefully, right? So you want to be able to practice a lot. Practice, practice, practice. I also listed some apps that may help you with anxiety, such as Headspace, Calm, Shine, Breathe to Relax, and there's probably much more now than when I created this list. So you want to be able to practice breathing, relaxation, and grounding techniques. Mindfulness is a go. We are so good at telling people what to do, but we actually need to take some time and use these practices, right? Eating right, getting the right amount of sleep. All these things is going to impact your performance. It is. 2 under 2. Ooh. I have 1 under 2, and I'm like, wow, this is a lot. And so what I want to tell you is that you can do it. No matter what your situation is, you can do it. You just want to be able to set yourself up for success, right? And so all those people that said they was going to help you, oh, look at the baby. They're so cute. I love babies. Do you really love babies? Here, take 1 or 2. Yes, 2.5-year-old twins. Yes. It can be difficult, especially when you have multiple and competing priorities. So what I say with the exam is you have to know your why. Why are you doing this, right? Ask yourself why 7 times. Okay, ask yourself why 7 times. Well, I want to get the exam so I can make more money. Why do you want to make more money? Well, I want to buy a house. Why do you want to buy a house, right? Ask yourself why 7 times, because it really gets you to the core of what your why is. Like, why are you doing this? I want you to also write your fears about the exam. Write about them for 10 minutes. Just write all your fears down on paper. I'm not going to pass. I'm not smart enough. I'm not whatever. It can be real bad. Just write it down. I'm not going to get a job. I'm not going to make any money. I'm going to be a poor social worker. You're not, but write it down. And then I want you to find affirmations to combat your fears. If you're religious, use your religion to combat your fears, whatever that may be, and whatever your religion tells you about those fears, use it. And I'm spending a lot of time on this because a lot of people miss this, right? They jump right into human behavior. They like, Freud, okay. Or they say code of ethics. All right, but no, you need to spend time on this right here. Okay. I want you to write down what anxiety symptoms are you feeling. You need to be communicating about this. Hey, partner, or hey, mom, or hey, whoever is in your circle, I'm dealing with this. I need help, right? Or let me find me some help. Or let me go to Zumba. This is what I'm currently doing. Let me go to Zumba every Wednesday so that I can get a break and have a little fun, sweat a little bit, right? So you need to be able to focus on this and put these things in your study plan, right? We talked about the hype song, but you also need your calming techniques in there as well. So for me, I use scripture. I had certain scriptures written on my study exam. On my study guide. And every time before I opened it, I went to the front page and I read my affirmations every time. So you need to have some type of routine every time, whether you play your song every time, whether you look in yourself in the mirror and you tell yourself that you are beautiful, you are the best, you are whatever you have to do, that's what you need to do every single time. And I'm telling you this because it will change you. I'm trying to tell you. I could not have passed unless I had this too. The content is the content. You either know it or you don't. Hopefully you'll have a good working knowledge. But I'm trying to tell you, if you don't have this part of this, it's not going to work for you. Hold on. Let me plug my laptop in before it dies. Hold on. Don't go nowhere. Okay. It didn't cut off. Great. So this is really important. So someone tell me in the chat, what do you do for your study routine? Have you implemented anything in your study routine? If you're visual, this is vision board season. Create a vision board of your why. So get some pictures together, and you could put it on an actual board, or you could just make a collage and have it as your screensaver, right? So if your why is your twins, put their pictures on there. You may have a dream of having making 6 figures. Put that on the collage, right? Put whatever you want to be, CEO, debt free, whatever the reason is, I want you to see it. If you're auditory, I want you to say it. If you're hands on, I want you to feel it. I don't know how you would feel it, but I want you to meditate on it, right? Sticky note. Oh yes, this is a good suggestion. Sticky note with LMSW, LCSW, whatever the letters are behind your name. Okay. Because in social work, it's all about the letters. I think I got my PhD half because it was discounted because I work for the university, and half because I wanted some letters. I wanted letters. We all need some affirmations, okay? These letters give me a little, I have imposter syndrome a lot of times, but I like the letters. So go ahead and write it. A lot of people say you can speak it. So I'm not going to get too deep, but I'm just saying, I believe that. A lot of people have told me what they put on their vision board comes true. After the fact, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe when I looked on my vision board, it had the exact situation that I'm in now on the board. So I'm trying to tell you so much that this is for you. As much as this journey is professional, it is also personal. That's the tricky thing about social work, is that as much as we are professionals, social work is oh so personal. And I know we have the code of ethics that says that we should have these set of values and we should leave our personal values at home. But social work is changing. They no longer expect you to be two different people, right? They expect you to bring you, right? And so I'm asking that in this process, you bring you. Whatever that is, you need to really dig deep and see, what is this journey trying to teach me? And I'm really speaking to those who have taken the exam multiple times, right? Because at this point, you could be thinking, this is my last time. If I don't pass on this time, I'm just never going to get it, right? That could be you. But what I'm telling you is that, and that's fine. If that's your decision, you don't want to pursue the license anymore, you don't want to pursue social work anymore, I get it. I totally get it. But if you have any strength left, I am asking you today that you can do it. And sometimes it's something personal that you just had to go through, and you didn't even know that a social work license could be speaking to something that you needed to learn or something that you needed to go through, right? And so for me, and as an exam coach, I hate the fact that you're failing the exam. I hate it. I want to pass it for you. I want to go with you on the exam and help you pass right then and there. If it's not ethical, but I would love to do that, right? And so it can be so hard. But I would ask you to find the courage, if you can, and pass that exam. I've had people that passed it after the 8th time, the 9th time, and I'm like, wow, that is a lot of strength and courage to continue to go for the exam and go for the exam. It takes a lot of courage. And so I just want to commend you all for having the courage to approach an exam that we know is not set up for someone to pass, right? So this is a big deal. Okay, common mindset errors. For those that are on an island by yourself, please don't do that. Please get your support system in place. I know you don't like telling people that you're even taking the exam. You don't want to tell them your date. You don't want them to ask no questions and be like, well, did you pass? I know, because my students and my clients, I know they've taken the exam. I know the dates and the time, and I don't hear nothing from them. And I'd be like, I so bad I want to reach out and be like, how did it go? But typically the silence is a bad thing. So making sure that you're facing your anxiety. I told you that is a major error if you are not addressing it. Not taking advantage of test accommodations. This comes up a lot. I don't have a whole lot of time to spend on accommodations, but just know that they have an application for it. and that the common way to get an accommodation is by anxiety. So if you have a doctor or a therapist that will say you have anxiety and say that you need an extra hour, that is typically very easy to get. If you want to be in a room by yourself, if you want a paper exam, those things are a little harder to get. And they require a little bit more than just being anxious, right? You need a little more for that. But if you have any, I don't know a lot about the process for accommodations, but I have helped people with the narrative. So if you need help with the narrative, just email me a draft of the narrative. And then I can edit it and help you. And typically when I help people, they get it. But I've only helped people that wanted more time. I haven't had the chance to help anyone that needed like their own room or needed a paper exam. So I'm not really sure how to word it for those things, but to get an extra hour, I got that. I had about, yeah. Okay, I think I stopped inviting family and friends to be part of my process because I started to feel the pressure. Yes. This go around, I plan on being more vulnerable and allowing them to be support for me. Yes. So it's hard. I understand both sides, right? Because like I said, if you tell them, they're going to want to know. They're going to want to know, did you pass? Right? And so you may just let them know ahead of time, hey, I am going to take the exam. You may tell them when, you may not. And you just let them know how you want them to support you. You know, if you don't want them asking you, just let them know, hey, don't ask me how I went. When I'm ready to talk about it, I'll let you know. Because it's very vulnerable. This whole process is very sensitive. And I get it because I talk to a lot of people about it. So I totally understand. I went through it as well. So I totally understand. Don't intellectualize the exam. Don't focus on, hey, Dr. Boone, what does formative and summative research evaluation, what does that mean? You know, because you're just trying to get you're just trying to figure out why you didn't pass. So you're just getting all types of information, right? Take that time to kind of debrief and get in tune with you, right? Second guessing is a major thing. And during my live classes, we're going to discuss second guessing, and also practice is how you get out of it. Practice and building your confidence. Affirmations, they're really important. And I have some here. I believe everything works out for the best. I stole that from the Bible. A wrong answer is an opportunity to learn about areas I need to improve. Because I know we don't care anything about numbers until it has to deal with the exam. Then you are all mathematicians. You're like, I only got 33.5% right. I'm like, what? For me as an exam coach, I don't even care about how many you get right or wrong. The only time I care is that practice exam, whether it's ASWB or whatever practice exam you're going to take before you take the exam. That's when I care. While you're practicing, you're supposed to get it wrong. You're supposed to. You don't. If you already knew everything, then you wouldn't need to study. You just go take the exam, right? So it's okay to get things wrong. Don't beat yourself up because you took the pocket prep and you got 10 out of 10 wrong. It's okay. Just learn from it. If you can learn from it, then you'll be better. I never give up. I can pass. If you have to tell yourself I can pass over and over and over again, that's what I need you to do. Hey, precious. I know I can accomplish anything I set my mind to. I know the material. You do know the material. And that is the crazy thing. This is what I used to do in my individual sessions. Like when I very first started, I used to do individuals. And the reason I don't do individual sessions anymore is because I kept repeating myself. So I'm like, I just need to tell a group of people one at a time. So I don't have to do this, 8 times in a week. But what I found was, if I ask you about the topic, you can spit it back to me. Okay? If I ask you about the material, you'll spit it back to me, but then you'll pick an answer that has nothing to do with what you just told me, right? So if it has to do with ethics, I'll ask you about, okay, well, tell me a little bit about conflict of interest. You can give me all the answers about conflict of interest, but then when it comes to the question, you're picking something about transferring a client. I'm like, wait, so that is a little bit of doubt setting in, right? Because you're doubting yourself, but you do know the material and you can crack the code to the test and you are going to process the questions correctly. If you are regrouping, we kind of talked about all this, but just make sure you give yourself some time. If you're able to waive the 90 days because you failed, but you failed within less than 10 points, do the waiver. I say do the waiver. Unless you were having a tragedy. And that's the other thing. We have been through so much and go through so much on a daily basis that no one even knows, right? I don't know what you go through, but you know what you go through. And sometimes what happens is that you are actually going through, life is hitting you with a ton of bricks. And, I've had clients that have lost like children and everything, and you are still fighting, and that's good. But if you need to take a break, it's okay. A lot of times you're like, I was going to take the exam, but then I had this happen, this happened, this happened. Oh my goodness, there's so much going on. And that's okay. Don't be ashamed of that. It's okay that you needed a break. Okay. And only you know when it's time to get back. So take a break, whatever you need. And when life happens, the exam is not more important than you, and it's not more important than your family. So obviously you're going to put those things first. I would never tell you, well, you're just not focused. That's why you're not passing the exam. You focused on too many other things. What? No. No, I've heard exam coaches, I've been told that they will say stuff like that, and that I would never say anything like that. We are who we are first. And so if it's not the right time for you, then that's okay. But if you're going to make it work, I'm here for it. Okay. We're going to make it work together. Even if you do have a busy schedule, being able to stay on track and be able to find that time is going to be key for you. And please spend time on getting those, what was it? Sorry. Spend time on addressing your anxiety and self-confidence. Yes. Okay, here are some free study resources. Facebook. So Facebook comes with a warning, okay? Because on the daily, people are failing. So you're just going to see a lot of, I failed. So that's depressing. But if you're a little morbid like me, you like a little depressing. I like depressing stuff. So I will free depressing stuff. But it can be a little bit. So you might have to block the Facebook group. Maybe you just use it for the files and not actually look at the timeline. So, but there is a lot of inspiring things on there. People do pass and they tell you what they did. So it can be good too. I think it's a great resource. There is a Quizlet, and I'm going to put the link in the chat. Yeah, I'm going to put the link in the chat for you. I also have a DSM-5 cheat sheet that you can use, which is really good. Of course, the Code of Ethics is just going to take you to the website. And then there are good YouTube channels. Agents of Change, I've heard great things about. Megan, Dr. Pam Turner. I am an advocate for her. She's really, really good. The third bullet is me. Yeah, I can put it in the chat as well. And Phil Luttrell is really good as well. So the reason I do free classes is so you can see, can you stand me? So pick the coach that works for you. If it's not me, I'm not offended. I want to make sure you pass. So, okay, yes. Let me get some of these links. I'm going to put those in the chat. No, not the drive. No, that's not what I want. Okay. Okay, so here's the Quizlet. I'm gonna put that in the chat and in the Facebook. And this Quizlet comes from one of my older students, and she gave me permission to share it. So thank you. All right. Not the poll. Let's go back. Okay. Okay, I think we're ready for questions. So we're gonna do 5 questions. It's 8:17. Okay, let me stop sharing and then I'm gonna bring it up. So I do have a poll tonight. I wanted you to feel like you were in one of my regular classes. I'm gonna put the poll in the chat so that you can use it if you would like. So I put the poll in the chat. It should be working. If not, we're gonna look at it on the screen as well. I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna give you 45 seconds to review the question. Is the poll working? Let me check. See the results. Okay, I have people answering, so I think it's working. Don't give your answers in the chat until I let you know that the time is up. I know you're still gonna do it, but try not to, try not to. What happened? Oh, there we go. Let me see how you did. Okay, it's only 20 people, but go ahead and put in the chat as well if you would like. We were a little bit split on this one between A and C. So we're gonna go over the liked method. So the liked method is a way to process the question. Last sentence first. Identify the type of question. Key concepts. Eliminate 2 or 1. Eliminate 2. I'm just gonna put 2 wrong answers and identify your distractor. So I have a lot of people tell me that there's a lot of LGBTQ plus questions on there. So I want to make sure that I am creating questions that are addressing this. And one of the things that I really want you to do is to make sure you are doing and keeping up with your terms. So when you all are doing, oh yeah, here it is. Yes, glossary of terms. I'm gonna put this in the chat as well. It's gonna be a game changer. Game changer. So last sentence first. Which term best describes the student having an unfixed gender identity? So with best, typically what I want you to do, not for all questions, but if it says best, I want you to look at this sentence right before it. The student uses the pronouns they, them, and does not identify with a single fixed gender. Which term best describes? So you know it's going to be a definition, which is good. And they just gave you the definition. Now, everything prior to that, actually, we don't even need. We just need to know if it says which term best describes, then we need to find the description. Okay, so we're gonna, typically it's gonna be right here. It's not always right there, but with best and most, my best advice for those types of questions is to look at that sentence right before. Now, I had a couple of my clients do that for every question, and it does not work for every question. When in doubt, if you have kind of processed the question, you're still unsure what they're trying to ask you, typically that last sentence right before the last sentence will help you with best and most questions, typically. So this was a definition question. So the answer is C, gender fluid. Let's read the rationale. I always have rationale with my questions. It's really important that you know why the answer is the answer. And it's even more important that you know why the other answers are not the answer. So A is about external appearance, right? So if it has said something about external appearance or appearance, then it would be A, but it didn't say anything about that. It's talking about how they identify in terms of their gender. So if you picked A, you were close because it did have something to do with gender. It just wasn't their expression. It had to do with gender identity. So gender fluid has to do with gender identity. So B is defined as, let's see. B is defined as intersex people are born with a variety of differences in their sex trait and reproductive anatomy. So it gives you some more information about that. So we knew it wasn't that. It had nothing to do with that. And then D is defined as someone who has a potential for emotional, romantic, or sexual attraction to people of any gender, though not necessarily simultaneous in the same way or to the same degree. Sometimes can be interchangeable with bisexual. So that has to do with sexual orientation. So we didn't see anything about that in there as well. So it's really important that you understand the terms. That's key. So if we were doing our things I don't know book, you would put all of these terms in there, unless you knew them really well. Even though the answer was not B and D, I still want you to know what those are. So go to that website. It's really, really good. They have other resources on there as well, but the glossary is really good. Okay, let's do number 2. Same, it's going to be the same link, but let me just put it back in the chat one more time. Oh, the one. Oh, there we go. And I'm going to pin it this time. Okay, let's go over this one. Hey, Sawa. Here's another best one. Yeah, go ahead and put your answers in the chat. Another best one. The social worker's best response is 2. Okay, we're gonna read the whole thing, but let's see. As the client demonstrates progress, the social worker is feeling extreme romantic attraction towards the client. What is that called when a social worker is experiencing extreme romantic attraction? What's that called? Almost. Countertransference. So transference is when the client is having feelings towards us. Countertransference is when we're having feelings towards the client. Okay. So we're having some countertransference feelings, romantic feelings. Okay. So A, immediately set up an appointment with the agency supervisor. B, plan to discuss the romantic attraction at the next session with the client. C, ask other co-workers if they have availability to transfer the client. D, devise a strategy for termination since therapeutic progress has been achieved. Has it? It says, as the client demonstrates progress, does it say that we have enough progress? So you gotta keep in mind. So when we terminate, we want to have, if we were to put a percentage on it, it's not going to say a percentage, but we want to have like very, very close to the goals, right? It could be any progress. It didn't say how much progress. It didn't say they are done, they reach all their goals. So remember, with termination, it's going to say specifically, if we were to terminate, it's going to say specifically what type of progress, how much. So this doesn't really give us that much. And it's really not about the progress. It's about us having feelings, having countertransference feelings. So reading this question, what type of question would you say this is? If you were to guess. And it's not necessary that you know what every question is. You don't have to know, but this is clearly ethics. So we have to go by our code of ethics. What does the code of ethics say about having these types of feelings? First of all, we cannot have them. Well, we can have them, but we cannot act on them, right? So we want to make sure that we do not act on these feelings and that we are going to process the feelings and make sure that we do not harm the client, because extreme romantic feelings can lead to stuff. So we want to make sure we do not show up in our state board's letter of how we got our license revoked because we acted on our romantic feelings, right? So we know we cannot have any type of dual relationship with our client. We cannot be in a relationship with our client. We cannot date our client. We cannot do any of those things. Unlike other professions, they can do that stuff, but we cannot. So we're going to, the best response. Now, all of these could be good, but what is the best response? It's going to be our supervisor. When you see countertransference, when you see transference, the answer is typically going to be your supervisor. Now, if you talk with your supervisor and you still have the romantic feelings, then you're probably going to end up transferring the client. But your supervisor is going to tell you what to do. Right? If the feelings cannot be subsided, it might not even take that long. If after a week you still having these feelings and it's interfering with your therapeutic relationship, then you are going to transfer the client. If you can behave yourself, especially if the client doesn't even know, you know, maybe you could possibly work through it. I don't know. But if your client real fine and you can't contain yourself, you might need to transfer the client. But out of these 4 options, the best is A. Okay. C sounds really good. You see how C sounds good? Because transfer the client may be something we would do possibly later. But as other coworkers, if they have availability, that's not typically how you transfer a client. Normally, there's a process of transferring a client, and you don't normally transfer a client. It's typically maybe your supervisor that would do it. So that answer would just not fit at all. So the red, I forgot to tell you this, the red is what I eliminated immediately. D was my distractor. Even though I saw people pick B, but in my ethical head, I wouldn't see the benefit of discussing the romantic attraction, because anything that puts you in the, like when you are social working yourself or if you're making it about yourself, that typically is not something good, right? So if I'm discussing my romantic attraction to my client, like what would I necessarily get out of that? I'm not sure. Unless I'm like, hey, typically you tell someone you're attracted to them if you want to go out with them. So I don't know. I don't know what the therapeutic reason would be to tell them about it, but I don't think that's a good idea because that puts it on you. It makes the session about you. And now they're trying to, you know, process the fact that you have feelings for them. I don't know. I got rid of that pretty immediately. I would get rid of that. So that's how I processed it. If you have any questions as we go along, please put it in the chat. But my hope is that the explanation was pretty good. So we're going to move on to 3. I only have 5, so it's 3, 4, and 5. So we have 3 questions left. And I'm going to mute myself. Don't put your answer in until I come back. Okay, go ahead and put your answers in the chat, or if you put it on the poll, that's fine. And by the way, these questions are hot off the press, okay? I'm trying to build up a test question bank so that I can roll out a full practice test of 170 questions. So these questions are fresh off the press, okay? But the questions in my live groups is going to be the same as the replay bundle. So don't worry, if you have the replay bundle, everything is the same. When I roll it out, I'm going to roll it out to the replay bundle people first. So you'll get the full practice exam first. This one was tricky, yes. And because when my questions are, when I'm coming up with the questions, sometimes they don't always make sense. So I'm gonna hope that this makes sense once I explain it. So go with me here, okay? Go with me. So what should a social worker do first? So when you see a first question, you're gonna put the answers in order of what you're gonna eliminate first what you would never do or what you would do last. So what's important in this question? A school social worker has obtained informed consent from the parents of a teenager with academic problems to participate in services from the social work department. The teen comes out to the social worker about their sexual orientation. After a few months, the teen decides to also come out to their friends. The teen is not ready to discuss their sexual orientation with any of their family members. So recently, the parents submitted a written request for a copy of the teen's records. This was tricky, okay? You have a lot of ethical things going on, okay? So we know that when the issue, especially working with the teen, when the issue is not harm to themselves or others, we don't need to disclose. So if the teen is asking us not to disclose, then we should not do so, right? If the teen was suicidal, homicidal, if the information was detrimental to themselves or others being harmed, then we would absolutely disclose that, right? But because we have therapy relationship, we're trying to build trust with our client. How you respond to this is going to be key, right? And it does say first. Yeah, that's really important. It says first. So it doesn't mean that you're not going to do all of these things or some of these things. It just means what would you consider, or how are you going to make your decision? What would you consider first? So this was my thought process. Okay. Give the parents access to the record immediately. Well, we have some conflicting things, right? The teen doesn't want them to know. And if I give them the record is going to say in there about the sexual orientation. We probably documented it, right? So it's not that I may not do that, but I'm not going to do that first, right? Because I need to consider my client and I need to consider some other things too, right? Allow the parents to view only parts of the record to exclude the client's sexual orientation. That might be real good too. We might do that as well. Follow appropriate jurisdictional regulations. Now the answer is C. But the reason that I wrote this question and put the answer as C is because remember in the news, I don't know if you saw this in the news, and I cannot remember what state it was, but they made a law in which any school personnel, if a child discloses to you their sexual orientation, you are not allowed to tell their parents. And I remember it was some parents had a problem with that, right? But besides the political part of it, I thought about that in this question, that in some states, it may be against the law for you to give that information, right? And even if that's not necessarily a law, just in terms of you thinking about how should I proceed, I would say it depends on the regulations. Now, some people, because I previewed this question with the students I did my workshops with this past week, they were like, well, it's not a legal issue, so why would it be C, you know? So I would say regulations, maybe that might have thrown you off, but basically what it's saying is that you're going to follow whatever parameters are under which you're housed under, right? So I'm in Maryland. So the parameters might be Maryland, the parameters might be Baltimore City, the parameters might be my agency, right? Whatever my agency says about this. You know what, but the code of ethics kind of talk about it too. So could it be possible for the social worker to have a discussion with the client first if that was an option? Yes, I think that would be a good first. Yes, absolutely. Hey, your parents made this request. What do you think about this? How should we proceed? I felt like D is definitely not it. I got rid of that first, along with B, because I felt like D was pushing them to do something they already said they weren't ready to do. And I felt like that goes against self-determination. So that's why I eliminated D. Discuss with the client how they're coming out to their parent is time sensitive. Basically, you're saying like, hurry up so that I can give them your record. That's how I wrote it. Like, hurry up, I gotta give them your record. So come out to them now so that I can give them the record, you know? So that's not a reason we would do that. Any other thoughts? With that new law in that state be reflected on the exam. So like this would be the right answer on the exam. So with the new law, I said, that's what I had in mind, but C just means the reason I wanted to pull this out is because jurisdiction, anytime it says something about jurisdiction, it's a great option. It's not always the answer, but it's a great option because what it's saying is that the exam is national. And so there's no way that the exam can capture every state unique laws. So this is just saying whatever laws are in your state, that's what you need to follow. So it's a great answer. The only time I've seen that this is not the answer is if it was a safety question. So in a safety situation, we have code of ethics for that. We don't necessarily need our state laws for that, right? So a suicide, we're going to treat a suicide typically the same way, no matter what state we're in. But there are certain things, typically access to records is one of those jurisdictional things. So I've seen another question about how long do you store records? Well, that's jurisdictional, right? It could be 5 years, it could be 7 years. It depends on your state. It depends on the laws and the regulation. So that's all I was trying to get at with this. If there's nothing prohibiting you in the regulations, then you're going to proceed with one of the other options. Oh, question yourself because of the word first. Yes. And I think that like we all talked about, discuss with the client first would be great. But because D says discuss with the client about their coming out to their parents, well, that's not what we're not going to do that. But if it just said discuss with the client their request, that would definitely be something we would do first as well. So remember with the exam, it all depends on your answer selections as to what the answer is going to be, right? So if we had a whole different set of answers, of course, we might pick pick something else, right? So I understand it's hard to be like, well, these aren't going to be the answers on the real exam. So how am I going to get the answer right? But if you know what they're looking for, if you know general concepts, then you'll be able to get questions right. You can get them right. Okay, let's do 4. Okay, go ahead and put your answers in the chat. Let's go over this one. Here's our 3 answer option. And all I did was, it was 4 answers, and I took out the one that was the distractor. So that's what I'm hoping that they do on the real exam, is they take the distractor out so that it will help you get the answer right. Okay, next. Next is like first. So you need to put the answers in order. Every time you see first and every time you see next, you need to put the answers in order. So we had a lot of information. This was long, right? So what was important to you in this question? What were your key concepts? I know what your answers were, but tell me what your key concepts were. Client unhappy. Okay. Religion and unhappy. Okay. Conflicted feelings. Yeah, absolutely. So you always want to know, this is important. You always want to know the presenting problem. The presenting problem is anxiety and depression. This is our initial session. So what are we doing in the initial session? When we have a first and next question, we're always doing this. Well, not always, but safety, feelings, assessment. Every time you see a first or next question, I want you to ask yourself, is this a safety question? Should I be acknowledging my client's feelings or validating their feelings or considering their feelings in some type of way? Or should I be gathering information? So it says that we have actively listened to the client's current feelings. Okay, so we have already acknowledged their feelings. We're actively listening. We're conveying to the client that we have empathy for their feelings. Right. So it's about, what do we do right after we're listening, right? And when you see next, you're typically still in the session. It's not all the time, but especially if it's telling you that you're in a session, and especially if it's telling you that the client just expressed something, then what happens next is going to be something still in the session. So arranging a couple session, although that sounds good, that would mean that you're actively listening to the feelings, and then you're saying, you know, thank you for sharing that. Now let's arrange a couple sessions, right? It's like, wait, no. And although that may be something we do in the future, typically we're not going to do that right after an initial session, right? We want to get to know our client. We want to have some type of rapport with our client before we start bringing people into sessions, right? So we're not going to do that next. We may do that in the future, but we're not going to do that next. So that's how I want you to see next. Next is like first, and it's really only next because it's happening, because it told you something already happened, and it wants you to know, it wants to know, what should you do right after what just happened? What is the very next step? And with this exam, you have to think about every step. It wants to know, do you breathe first? Do you do you blink? Do you what do you do, right? And it wants to know every single step. So we kind of think of things in more broader terms. The exam breaks it all down. Okay. Suggest the client begin sessions with a religious counselor. That is basically saying that you're not going to, right, you don't want to help. You're too religious for me. Let me find you somebody religious. Now, if they express how important it is that they have someone who is religious, and maybe you're not religious, and that could harm the therapeutic process, that would be a totally different thing. But it didn't say any of that. That would be you assuming all of that and putting it in there. So we have to deal just with what's on the screen. So the answer is A. I don't remember what the fourth option was, but I just remember, I don't remember what it was off the top of my head, but I took it out. A couple session is good. It could be something you do further down the line, but it's not going to be, you may not do it at all, but I don't, depending on how this goes, right? You may not do it at all, but A is going to be next. Explore the history of the marital relationship. Now that he told you he wants to leave the marriage, maybe you just want to get a little context, like, give me some, when did you meet? How long have you been together? Because he didn't say any of those things in the scenario. So you're going to want to ask those things. Okay, this is our last question, number 5. And it's a community question. Fun, fun, fun. Your favorite. I'll put the link in the chat one more time. Okay. Go ahead and put your answers in. If this one looks familiar, it's because it's in the replay bundle. So it's not as hot up, fresh off the presses like the other ones. But I did want to put in a community question. Come on, Precious, you can do it. Yes. Okay, so I asked you to put it in order because it's a first question. So everyone pretty much got the answer right. I think I didn't get to see everybody's answers, but on the poll, it was 100%. So let's clap it up. You did it. So with community, we know that getting the input of our client is best and first in everything, right? So the reason I asked you to put it in order is because I wanted to make sure I wanted to give you some practice with it. So C is last, present the proposed new budget. Then I would say B is right before that, draft it, okay, before you present it, right? And then I would say You could do A and D simultaneously, but because the exam is not simultaneous, they only do one thing at a time. We're going to go to the community members first. And so we would do our financial consultation in between, or probably at the same time, but we're going to do the community members first because they're more important than our financial consultation in terms of the test and community questions. All right, so does anyone have any questions on Facebook? I'm gonna go to Facebook first. Let me put my, let me do my plug for my groups, do my plug. They are all on sale currently. So you'll see, please pay attention to the dates because it's not every week. I put intentional breaks in there. So we're doing the free class tonight. Next week, we'll kick it off with practice questions only. This is the same material as all of my other practice question only sessions. So if you've taken it before, you don't need to take it again. And also the 19th and March 23rd are the same as well. I just offer it twice because some people need it right now because their exam is coming up. And then if you don't need it right now, you could probably just take the March 23rd one. So next week, we're doing practice questions only. Little bit of talking, a lot of questions. We're going to go over, I think it's 20 questions live, and then you have some questions for homework. Then on February 2nd, we're going to do developmental theories, which is human behavior theories, diversity. We're going to skip a week, and then February 16th, because I want you to study. February 16th, we're going to do community group administration. Nobody told me my flyer was wrong. Oh my gosh. So yes, this part is a duplicate, but February 23rd is direct practice. March 9th is ethics and safety. March 16th is diagnosis and medication. And then March 23rd is again the same session as the 19th. I just now noticed that. Oh no. I'm glad this was helpful. I hope that you feel a little more motivated. Please reach out to me. When are you going to put out the 170? It's so much pressure. So give me a deadline. I need accountability, okay, y'all? Now I can't do it next month, but let's March 23rd. I don't know. I've been trying to work on, I worked on it all last year, but I didn't really work on it. So I need to focus. Tomorrow, I know y'all need it. Y'all need it tomorrow, March. Okay, please help me. Help me, keep me accountable for March. April. Thanks. You already gave me extension. Oh, are you going to do a class on LGBT? Yeah. So diversity is in there. Also, if you go on end of January, also if you go on my YouTube, I did a whole class on diversity. So it's on YouTube. Is the replay bundle on sale? I am going to do a sale this weekend for Martin Luther King Day. So yes. Are the practice questions different from the self-paced course? No. Questions are the same. So the way I designed the material in the beginning was that either you needed me in person to motivate you, and so you get a lot of what you get in the live is the same as on the platform, but I wanted to make it flexible. So if you couldn't make it on the dates, that you would be able to have access. But I think what I'm going to do moving forward is just combine it, because it seems like people typically benefit from both, from having live and then being able to do it. I just don't know I had to figure that part out. Did you mention you get a free group if you have the bundle? Yes, you get a free group. Please email me. And when you email me, just let me know which class you would like for me to sign you up for, and I'll add you on there. Thank you for hosting this group tonight. I completely enjoyed it, and it helped me how to answer the questions. Oh yes, come to my groups. This was just a little bit. That was a little taste, but my groups, they are off the chain, and we really, it's really helpful, especially just to hear what other people are thinking, the reason why they picked certain ones. It's very helpful. All right, so if no one else has questions, then I will see you all next week. Come join me next week. Still not able to download the bundle. Still not able to download the bundle. Okay. We might need to go on a Zoom, Charity, so email me so that we can set that up, because I might just have to show you on Zoom how to navigate it. I will see you all next week. Yes, I've seen you. Some of you, it's been a while. I'm glad that you popped up and said hello. It's really good to see you. Do I sign up through your Facebook? For the classes, you can sign up. I think I put the link. No, I didn't. I didn't put the link. Here is the link to sign up for my classes. Again, here's a warning. You do have to sign up individually. Next time, I'm going to revamp the whole thing, and we're going to work this bundle out and do all types of good things with it. But for right now, it is Ticket Taylor. I did ask them if you all are able to add more than one class and pay for more than one class at a time, and they told me no. So what I'm going to do this time is just let you know, just be aware of it, be careful. And then next time we'll have a new platform. But for right now, you do have to purchase each individual one, and it's going to come up on your bank statement 6 times or 5 times, however many classes you purchase. So I do apologize for that, and we'll be fixing that. Next week is practice questions only. So we're just going to be doing practice questions. So I can't wait to see you all there, and please let me know if you have any questions. You can email me. I think you had my email at this point, but I'm going to put it on here as well. I also need to shorten my email because it's long. It's so long. I don't know who thought of that when they signed up and made this email. All right. Well, you've been great. It's 9 o'clock in the Eastern Standard Time. So I hope you all have a good night. And it was really good seeing you all. It was really good hearing from you. And I will see you next week. See you all. Have a great one. It was good seeing you.